Welcome, Michael Sahlin. Today we talk about Turkey, and you are the former Swedish ambassador to Turkey, so thank you for being with us today. There's elections in Turkey upcoming on the 14th of May with a potential second round 2 weeks later. What is at stake right now, especially if the opposition wins?
So it's an important and it's an extremely important choice that the Turkish 60 million electorate will have to make concerning which way to go, continuing under this regime or moving sort of back to something which is more similar to sort of Western institutional values like rule of law, like democracy, freedom of assembly, etc., but also the economy. Because as a result of the rulership of the current regime, the Turkish economy has declined dramatically compared to the very promising earlier years of the current regime.
And what do you think is the Turkish population seeing are the key issues for them to put forward? What do you think, what choice will they take?
Well, I think that the population, I've seen some investigations in opinion polls about what they think is important, and by far the biggest concern that they are showing is the economy. Then you have other concerns, terrorism and things like that. But economy clearly dominates perceptions of what is important for them. And then you would think that, well, due to the fact that so many things about the economy are so problematic now, you would think that, and with the prioritization of the people of those issues, because it affects their daily life so much, that how could you possibly vote for the incumbent regime in a free and fair election? We'll come back to free and fair perhaps later. But then there are other factors at play also, and Mr. Erdogan is having the full apparatus of the state, and he has been proving as an almost invincible figure in Turkish politics because he has been winning election after election for all those years. Means may have varied, but the fact that he won those elections and in a way that could not be openly contested makes him a formidable opponent. There are two things that are somehow weighing. One thing is the welfare aspect, and the other thing is the identity questions, which somehow tends to be commanded by the incumbent president. So it's a fascinating struggle for the souls of Turks. If Erdogan remains in power, that will give him the security of tenure, and then he can sort of work on how to improve on things that were clearly less than wonderfully managed for some years now. For example, well, again, the economy. He must, if he wins, encourage Western investors to trust that there can be some kind of basic rule of law, allowing them to trust that the investments are worthwhile in Turkey. So there are lots of such things. Whereas the opposition are now saying that they are going to sort of competently look into all aspects of the economy and do the necessary reforms, discuss with IMF, International Monetary Fund, maybe not applying their rules or asking them to do things, but at least discuss with them so that Turkey is shown by them to be taking the step of re-entering the international capitalist system and also the democratic world, Western world of sorts, by reinstating a rule of law properly, recreating politically independent judicial bodies in the system, looking into imprisonments, perhaps freeing people like Demirtas, the former pro-Kurdish leader, and Mr. Kavala, the famous name, being blamed by the current regime for his involvement in the Gezi Park demonstrations in 2013. So they are trying to see what can we be doing if we win both elections, then what can we do realistically and credibly as first steps to show the world and show the Turkish people that this is a new direction of things, even if it will take time to go all the way.
Depending on which part is winning, what scenario do you see for Turkey's role, which they will assume as a regional player in the current situation, the war in Ukraine?
Yeah. Well, what I perceive from at least from what I've heard and read about this, they are the opposition spokespersons, the ones that now feel that they are the probable next foreign ministers and stuff like that. They are telling me and others that they are going to prioritize some things very early because they need to show the West that they are well-meaning and really intending to go in another direction. And they specifically mention the case of ratification of Sweden for NATO as one of the early steps that they will take, meaning also before the Vilnius summit of NATO, which is so important for Sweden, obviously, but also for NATO. Because having Finland, that's fine, but Finland only means incomplete enlargement, as Niinistö and others have been saying.
And what is your key concern in a situation that there's an unstable, weak situation in Turkey? No clear majority, no clear leadership. What is the key concern of a weak Turkey in the region?
Well, it's weak. A weak political situation or leadership, let's say, has two major negative consequences. One is that it will provide for lack of stability inside Turkey, because stability in Turkey requires either a very strong man and a broad-based trust in the future behind governance. So it's imposition or of guidance, so to speak. And but weak governance also means difficulty in dealing with the Turkey's economic problems. Because whatever government and whoever wins, by the way, will need to prioritize dealing with the economy. Because there are so many things postponed now because of the elections and because of the earthquake and all the things that have been sort of dealt with in a way which is highly contested. So whoever wins will need to prioritize dealing with it. But the issue here is that if you are going to deal properly, and with properly I mean seriously, restoring the economy's health, then there are so many things which risk having to add further hardships on the already suffering people. Austerity packages, raising the interest rate into something which is realistic in relation to the inflation rate. If you have inflation close to 100%, then of course there are enormous sufferings that are being at the risk side concerning any remedy to that. And that, of course, either you impose that with a strong hand and to hell with the consequences concerning legitimacy, or you try to combine it with legitimacy and trust, and then you have to have democratization as a precondition. So there is a link between democracy, rule of law, dealing with the economy, and the whole government system in a big package. And that, of course, is an enormous challenge. In foreign policy, then, what I hear is that there is a lot of continuity that is to be expected, even if the opposition wins, because most Turks, even the opposition, would stand by some main points. They have been aggressively pursued by the current government, perhaps, but the substance of them will be sort of adhered to also by the opposition. Cyprus, Nagorno-Karabakh, NATO relations, with this exception perhaps of the Swedish case here. So, but if Erdogan wins and wins clearly, so that he can retain his position more or less as it is now, then the question will be for the West to learn to live with that and adapt to that. And then everything depends on what happens in Ukraine. So there are many such aspects to be considering.
Yeah.
So there are big choices here.
let's see what will be happening.
Mm.
But thank you really, Michael, for talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you.